Hello, hello, and this is the first installment of my new video blog, JustinTime. It's a terrible pun, get used to it. So, I'm going to be posting one of these once a week, hopefully, if I have the time, and I'm going to be going over a variety of issues that happen during the week. Maybe I'll go into something that's a little more, not current issue if I feel like it, but usually I'll be sticking to, what's going on in the world. And it's not always going to be politics. Maybe it'll be religion. Maybe it'll be just something I thought was funny in the news. I don't know. I can't predict these things, but I have my opinion, and now I'm going to share it with you because I know you're all just so excited to hear my opinion on everything. I am very vocal about it. So, this week, I could have talked about Syria. I wanted to talk about Syria, but this thing in the news about Rick Santorum, he keeps coming back into the public light, and it's always about the same stuff. It's always about his religion, his Catholic religion, and how America isn't nearly religious enough, in his view, Christian or Catholic enough. And it's happened like three events in the past week or two have really just called attention to this. And the first one was the whole contraception issue with the Catholic Church ensuring women would have contraception, access to that. And Obama kind of backed off on it a little bit. He said, I'll just make the insurance companies pay for it, not the Catholic Church or the Catholic hospitals themselves, which really doesn't make any sense because they have to pay for the insurance who then pays for the contraception. You see, all of this could be solved if we just had a free market in insurance, like we have on life insurance or in car insurance. Instead of it being attached to your employer, it would be something you go out and try and find the best prices for, the best quotes. Whoever, would do contraception for you, you pay for that, You might pay extra. I don't really see why you need insurance for contraception in the first place. I mean, how much does a condom cost these days, really? I mean, but, I understand why Catholics are uncomfortable with it. But, I don't really share their sentiments, but I understand why they're uncomfortable with it. It's, unbiblical to them. But the biggest thing is that the government shouldn't be forcing people to do anything. That I agree with. But Rick Santorum and people like him like to turn this into a war on religion, which is really ridiculous because there is no war on religion or anything close to a war on religion happening in this country, or really any country. I mean, you can sort of say some of the Islamic countries is a war based on religion, but not a war on religion. In this country, the vast majority are Christians. It's undeniable. Upwards of 85-90% are Christians. Catholics, Protestants of various denominations, but they all kind of get along. Catholics and Protestants didn't always get along. Well into the 20th century they didn't get along, but now they get along just fine. The abortion issue united them. You should thank abortion for bringing you guys together. You guys are now wonderful friends. So, it's a majority Christian nation. It's undeniable. You can't, everyone in government is either Christian or you have like two Jews. You gotta have the token Jew. I think there was one Muslim congressman, at some point. I don't know if he's still there, but, that happened. I don't know how, that happened. I don't think he was from, like, New York or maybe something like California. I don't know. It seemed weird. But there's never been an atheist. Never. Never been a agnostic. Never been a Buddhist, or any of the Eastern religions. I think there's been a Hindu. I think Jindal, whatever his name is in Louisiana, he's probably a Christian. I know he's Indian. But, basically it's always been the Western religions. The Judeo-Christian faith has been prominent in America's history and in our cultural and religious makeup. Undeniable. And it still exists that way. We see an upsurge in secularism recently, but really back at the beginning of this country, we were very secular. The new kind of evangelical religion didn't really come about until like the 70s and 80s. Before that it was very laid back. It wasn't, let's go out and make Christians. It was just, let's just, be happy where we're at. But, the whole religious crusade that, Rick Santorum and people like him, You know, that, oh, it's a war against religion by the secular media and the atheists in this country. It doesn't exist. You can find some examples of political correctness in, you know, places where, you know, someone was praying in school, or, you know, they brought a Bible with them to school. It's usually school. I don't know, children are easy targets, I guess. You know, anything in like a public arena where somebody's offended with something. But it's not always religion. It's anything. It's not based on, you know, religious offenses. Oh, you're being Christian and that's offending me. You know, the whole nativity scenes and all that kind of stuff. But it also, you know, a lot to do with race. You know, somebody like Don Imus says nappy-headed hose on his radio show, and suddenly he's Satan or close to it. And I'll get to that later, because apparently Rick Santorum thinks Satan's out to get America, which is interesting. But, you know, it's anything. Anything that offends anyone nowadays, you feel like you have a right not to be offended, which you don't. You do not have a right not to be offended. You could be offended at what I'm saying, and you probably are. I don't care. You don't have a right not to be offended. You can be offended, and then you can voice your opinion against the offense that I've given you. That's freedom of speech. You can go ahead and offend me. I don't care. I really don't care. I hear people who disagree with me constantly, and I will do them the respect of disagreeing with them back and not whining to the government about my civil liberties. Your liberties, which include freedom of speech, are not violated when someone else decides to voice their opinion. There's nothing in the Constitution, nothing in the Bill of Rights, nothing in any of our founding documents, just in common sense. You don't even have to look to our founding documents, just common sense. You don't have a right not to be offended. It's not going to exist. I mean, you would have to favor in somebody's some group. You'd have to favor them over others in order for that to be okay. You can't make sure everyone is pleased in a situation like that, and that's why it's ridiculous. But it's not just religion. It's not just Christians who get flack. It's anybody. Everyone gets this stuff. Everyone gets the political correctness. And most of the time, it's other religious people who are, I mean, like Jewish people usually are very anti-Christian religion anywhere. So it's usually other religious people who just want one person's religion not imposed on them. At least they're seeing it that way. And obviously that's not always the case. Someone bringing their Bible to school or praying in public or putting a nativity scene up on private property isn't infringing on your religious rights, obviously. But it's not just this war on religion. It's sometimes religion versus religion. And again, it has to do with race, it has to do with, you know, gender, it has to do with sexual orientation. Political correctness is kind of like it's kind of like a plague almost on this country. And in Europe too. And that's something we have to address. But making it into a war on religion is ridiculous. That's why Rick Santorum, you know, he's feeding into that. He's an opportunist. He wants to be elected president, and he knows he doesn't have a chance in hell. So he's trying to go to this base, you know, of radical evangelical Christians who, you know, really believe that there's a war on religion and the apocalypse is coming, and, you know, the Antichrist is gonna, you know, come, and you know, all this stuff. Armageddon. You know, they've read too much Tim LaHaye, honestly, and they really believe it's real. So people like Rick Santorum or Pat Robertson or John Hagee, these people appeal to this raw emotion that they have. It's complete nonsense. It's not even Christian. It's not even in the Bible. None of this stuff is. But they really believe it. They really, really believe it. And they think they're victims. Now, there are Christian victims throughout the world. In places like China, places like Iraq recently, and Egypt, where Christians have been persecuted. Really persecuted, because they're in the minority. They can be persecuted. No one can persecute a majority. No one. I mean, it's impossible. You can't. The minority doesn't have the power. Not in a democracy. I mean, maybe in a dictatorship. We don't live in a dictatorship. We live in a democracy. It's impossible. You can't. I mean, we see that Christians are in power. Obama, you know, it's not a secret Muslim. You know, he can't, maybe he's secretly an atheist, I don't know, but he seems to say he's a Christian, and, you know, at least, you know, all the congressmen, you know, they attend church, they're Christians, they constantly brag about how much more Christian they are than their fellow congressmen. So I just don't see this this oppression of Christians. I don't see it. I see a lot of political correctness, but I just don't see the oppression of Christians. It doesn't make any sense to me. The facts aren't there to support it. But then this other thing that you know, Rick Santorum said recently that I wanted to get to is that Satan is out to destroy America. You better look out. I mean, he's around every corner, under the bed. He could be under your bed right now, and you don't even know it. He's everywhere. He's out to destroy America, because everyone knows that if there's one thing that God loves and Satan hates, it's the United States of America, because we have just been, our record is 100% pure and clean. I mean, no other country can claim God's love like America. I mean, sure, we enslaved a whole bunch of people from Africa. You forgive these things. We committed genocide against an entire race of people called the Native Americans. But these things happen. What are you going to do? God still chose us as apparently the messianic divine nation to spread peace and democracy throughout the entire world, and we've done such a fine job of that, you know, who can say that God loves any other nation more than the United States of America, because we've just been so good at living up to the Christian religion and what Jesus said about loving your neighbor and, you know, not bombing them, things like that. So, obviously, the number one target for Satan is going to be America, not the church. No, not like the Pope or, you know, all the churches, the Protestant churches. No. He's not going after them. He's not going after people living a good life. He's going after the United States of America, because they're not